free time.
I mean, yeah, but it's strange. I mean, like you watch the brick and mortar stores are at a disadvantage.
It's true.
No way they can compete with, places that don't charge tax or.
From Erie's own Government Access, Channel 9, from the City Hall Council Chambers, it's time once again for the Taxpayers Hotline Show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host.
And this is Councilman Kaz Kwiatkowski and my good friend, want me to introduce you?
Go ahead.
Corey Valancourt. How did I say it? Good?
That's perfect, Kaz.
Okay. Author, what do I call you?
Oh, you can call me author for now.
Anything else? Or
just don't call me late for dinner.
I love that joke, but would you be like would you be an educator? No?
You could say that, I suppose. Lecturer, educator, also freelance writer. I do a lot more than just write books about local historical figures. Copywriting. My background was in journalism, so yeah.
You remind me of a friend I had. He wrote a lot of books on the Civil War and stuff. A local guy, he loved doing that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great fun if that's your discipline. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed digging into all the Tullio stuff, and I'm working real hard on the Savacchio era now. So look for that in a couple.
What nobody's ever done. I look back. I mean, there's been attempts at it, and most of them are commercial products. And there's been some books like Spencer. Nobody's really done a history of Erie.
No, in the genre of local history books, one name really stands out, and that's Dr. David Frew from Gannon. He's published, I've seen at least a dozen, maybe, probably many, many, many more. He seems to like to deal with
the water.
Yeah, shipwrecks, fishing, things of that nature. But he's done some other stuff too, and I've always really liked his work. It's super informative.
He works with my friend Jerry Skripczak a lot.
Yeah,
Jerry was a photographer. But yeah, there's been Spencer's book and there's been Ed Volges's book, but.
Yeah, I think a good comprehensive history of Erie hasn't been done yet, but at part of the Tullio project originally, over at the Jefferson Educational Society, they are currently producing a political history of Erie that's going to run from the city's founding, which is 1851, I believe, on through the Savacchio years. So I've already completed the Tullio portion of that. I'm working on the Savacchio portion, and Dr. Bill Garvey from the Jefferson is writing the portion from 1850 to about 1960, maybe through Art Gardner or Mayor Charles Williamson, through that era, where Tullio picks up. So we're hopeful that sometime this year, maybe spring or summer, that it's probably going to be a pretty thick book, but it's going to be very comprehensive and deal with all of the different forms of government that Erie's had and all of the different players and issues. And I was really excited to be a part of it, and I'm excited to read the rest of it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. There's been, the history of Erie, people like to remember the good old days, but sometimes, when it's put down in black and white, you go, there's been, even as a young man, I've always heard, this might happen, but nobody's had you have to have a lot of time to be able to go down to the newspaper archives at the library and plow through them. And
it's right. It's slow and meticulous work, but once you find what you're looking for, it's very, very rewarding, and I think important. These contributions to local history aren't just for trivia purposes. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in the Tullio book. I've already learned a lot about how the city functioned under the Savacchio administration, and it's always been my hope that despite the Tullio book being entertaining and fun to read, that there's some good lessons in there for the people that lead us now and are going to lead us in the future.
Well, yeah, that somebody's been through a lot of that. You kind of go ahead, caller.
Hey, Kaz.
Yeah.
I called you last week about that recycling, if it was a law or not, and I called your home. Your answering went on, but nothing.
Oh, you know what? I asked Sarah, but I didn't get a chance to talk to her. She's been. I have to get her. I'll see if she's in today, but I called her and I didn't get an answer for you.
Yeah, well, getting back to last week, when I called, that John called back and said he didn't believe I talked to somebody. I wouldn't just call you to make this up.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody in that Public Works office, the lady who answered the phone, told me that it was not mandatory to do that, and I always thought it was.
I think a lot of our employees sometimes are a little confused. I've had the same problem, and I don't mean to say that they don't know what they're talking about, but,
I questioned her. I said, I've been doing it for years. She said, well, you don't have to. We don't force it. It's up to the individual if they want to do it or not. I said, I didn't know that.
I know I saw some this week that kind of disappointed me. I put my bags out, and they were all separated, nice and neat, and they took the wrong ones. And I'm thinking, they did. There was 2 trucks, but I gotta get to the bottom of this a little bit. Maybe I need to take a run with them some night.
Yeah, well, that's all I just want to make clear that I didn't make it up. I mean, I talked to somebody.
No, I still got your number on my phone, and I'll see if she's up there real quick and get back to you.
Okay, that's all I have. Okay, Kev.
Okay. Yeah, because I was a little disappointed. I get 2 trucks, but I think they threw the wrong bags in there. It's pretty clear. Clear bags and blue bags and.
What is the city's actual recycling policy? I'm not really familiar with it.
I'd have to get Sarah on here. I mean, I know what I think it is. It's you're supposed to put all recyclables in a clear bag or a blue bag, and recyclables meaning glass and plastic.
And it can all go in the same bag.
Yeah.
Glass, plastic, anything recyclable.
Yeah, we call that
single stream.
Yeah, I used to. Mark I. Finley used to go nuts with this. Because he wanted it to be like some towns where, and I've seen this, where you have to put like flattened cans in one section, plastic in another, glass in another, newspapers at the bottom or something, and they call that source recycling, I think, or point of, and usually the towns that do that, I was led to believe they get more, But I don't know why we never did it.
But probably eliminate the expense of having to sort it out. So that would seem to make sense.
Because the way it is now, we send it to a tipping station, and they haul it out to the, I think they sort it there. Is what I was told. Okay. And the work is done mostly by Waste Management, so they give us a little bit, but not as much. They're going to charge us for the work they got to do separating it.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, and I think a lot of the city would like to have some clarification on that. I know a lot of people that recycle, and everyone seems to do it differently, and I've yet to hear someone tell me exactly what the policy is.
Someday I'll see if I can get Sarah on there and have you on there with us,
That'd be great.
Yeah, she's very a fountain of information on recycling. That's our recycling person.
Okay.
See if I can get somebody here to talk about it, because there is a lot of confusion.
Yeah, and I think people overwhelmingly want to recycle if you make it easy for them or let them know what they have to do. When people have questions about it, it's always easier to just throw everything away into one bag.
It's strange. We always had recycling, If you go back to, if you watch old people and I don't like to use the term old people, but people that were a little bit older than me, and even my generation, we remember recycling after World War II. It was kind of like you just did it because, and I never understood why until I went to this museum one time, and they had a thing about how on the home front everybody did this stuff.
Right.
Smashing cans and doing that. It was like it got into their system, and I remember we did that.
Right.
And we all did it, but for years then it went away.
Yeah, it did.
Then it became
between the 60s, 70s, maybe into the mid to late 80s, it faded. And
yeah, we're in the throwaway phase,
That's right.
Throw away everything,
We got plenty of landfills.
Yeah, it's strange, but...
Yeah, it's interesting how consumer culture has progressed through that, and then it came back in a big way, and now you're almost a pariah if you don't recycle.
No, I can remember digging up like garbage dumps and saying, look at this, The stuff is still there, after 20 years.
Yeah, that's right. Had dug up some on a former property that had trash from the 1800s. And
really?
Of course, all the organic stuff had long since dissipated, but ceramic, glass, metal, it was all still there and probably still will be for another 1,000 years.
You like history like me, When I go to places like Pit Hole or...
Right. Pit Hole's not even really a place anymore, is it?
No, but I mean, your mind has to wander. And I've been trying to get the lady down there to. She has some in the spring. I'm going to go down and do that. She takes you out. They got the roads hidden there, not the ones they mow, not the real ones.
Oh, is that right?
It's only part of them because she saw me out there with a measuring. I was out there with a yardstick one time. A ruler.
Yeah.
A tape measure. And she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, it doesn't add up." And she said, "That's because you're trying to figure out the width of the roads, right?" And she moved back some brush and said, "There's part of it." And but things didn't line up perfect like, you thought, but...
Interesting, yeah.
But, what do they always dig in? They dig in the back where they threw stuff.
Yeah, it's neat stuff. Pit hole. There's another couple of towns right around there as well, a lot of these oil boom towns that just dried up and are long gone, and there's some fascinating history behind those.
We even have famous one down in, what is it, one down in Virginia. God, and I was there. The old colonial town.
You're not talking about Roanoke?
Williamsburg.
Oh, Colonial Williamsburg, sure.
Yeah, and when they dug up that, and it was like, I often wondered. I used to ask people if they ever dug up where the French fort was in Erie, but you never got much traction on that.
That's a good question. It was burned when the French abandoned it. They didn't want it to fall into British hands, and it was most likely a log type structure with a facade or a palisade around it. So there probably wasn't much left. Although you'd be surprised at how much metal debris can persist.
Even today, with like ground penetrating radar, you can probably find.
They probably could. I'm not sure. The actual site of the fort, I believe, was closer to the soldiers' and sailors' homes. Is that right?
It sounded that way.
I know it wasn't under the armory there, which is...
I know they told us the one in Fort LaBeouf was in a different place, too. There was a couple of them. Mm-hmm. But... So, Jed, what do you think? You had a good holiday and everything?
Yeah, it was a great holiday. We were really lucky with the weather. Seemed like the city didn't have to, send out plows until just recently. So we've been very lucky this year.
They've been out there though.
Yeah, it's not bad. We had some really icy weather in the past few days, but it seems to be fairly under control, especially on the main streets. So hats off to the city for that. I know it's not an easy job, but when you're laying in bed and you hear that rumbling coming down the street of that plow, you're happy. So that's a good thing. That might be another good upcoming topic for future shows. Is the department that plows the streets. I wonder what that's like, how difficult of a job it is, what we can do as citizens to make their job easier. I'm sure there's a lot of things, just besides the parking bans, that we could all do to, maybe lighten the load a little bit for these folks.
Yeah, as a young man, I can remember, the people, your neighbors would say, they'd knock on your door, can you move that car? Mm-hmm.
That's right. You mess up once and the snow doesn't melt, and then the whole winter you've got this like snow fort on your street or something, and it just really ties.
And some of the guys were nice. They'd drive by and they go, "Hey, we're going to come,"
Yeah, let you know that they're on their way. Yeah, that's handy too. But I know that the parking bans are in effect for the snow routes and emergency routes, and the streets don't seem to be too bad in terms of.
It's the streets like mine that don't have
curbs,
any restrictions or anything.
Okay.
Sometimes they,
gets a little hairy.
Yeah, when you live here, you got to be a little, nice to your neighbors.
Yeah, definitely.
You leave your car somewhere up the street, and guess who gets all the snow in their driveway?
Well, hopefully we don't get too much more. It's looking like it's going to be decent here in a couple of days above freezing again. So
it's kind of weird weather, but
very much. This is an El Nino year, and they say it's one of the strongest, top 3 on record in the last 50 years or whatever. And we're certainly seeing that. I think we had some 60-degree temperatures into mid to late December, and I don't think a lot of people understand how that affects the city and the city budgets. I remember doing some research in the Tullio years, and in researching the budgets and things like that. One year, they actually had a small budget surplus because the money they allotted for overtime and for plowing and for salt especially, they didn't need to spend because it was a warmer than average winter. So just our weather patterns even can influence how the city's run and how the city has to spend its money.
Yeah, the finance department always, that's a tough call. I mean, when they present their budget to council, of course there's a lot of overtime in the streets, just like you do in police. What you don't know is, you hope it's not going to be bad. Now, of course, you got a surplus, so what that does is goes back into general. So that affects how you approach things next year.
Absolutely.
Now you got a little cushion, so, but you just, like I tell people, I ain't going to predict when it's going to, nobody knows.
No, and other interesting stuff I found was that I believe it was the year 1990 or 91. There was a mega storm of the century type event here in Erie, and Savacchio had only just been in office. Maybe it was her first year or her second. She wasn't there that long, and there was a newspaper story that was telling people to stock up on bottled water and maybe expect a National Guard and all these things. It never came to be, but it was a treacherous storm, much like one Tullio had experienced. I believe there was one in 68 or 67 early in his tenure where all of a sudden once every 50 years size storm happens. I believe Tullio's was an ice storm, which caused its own unique set of problems.
That one I remember. That was...
of course, the city, any money they had budgeted for regular snow removal probably wasn't enough, and so when these little surpluses hit, they can be a little cushion, but also you're looking down the barrel of a snow cannon every year, and you could end up, with a 100% deficit in that fund as well, based on what Mother Nature decides to do.
The old-timers talk about, and I think I was real young when they had it was one in the 50s. That was in Thanksgiving. That was the one to end all ones. That's before the cars we had, the wide plows, everything.
Oh, that must have been a nightmare.
I don't remember because I was young. I mean, I remember the impasse of it, but I think they did bring like the National Guard in to
help plow and
probably. I think they brought some track vehicles in there.
Okay, tanks. Yeah, I do recall seeing pictures of tank. There's a picture of a tank driving down Parade Street for some reason. It may be from that one.
Probably to break the snow down or something. Nothing like.
Yes, just smash it down.
Hey, nobody's calling us. What's wrong? It must be post New Year's.
Either that or you guys are doing such a bang-up job on council that there's really nothing to complain about.
Oh, now you're going to get somebody wired up.
Yeah, somebody's out there just got their hairs raised on the back of their neck.
Yeah, we are swearing in this morning, and I told the new councilwoman, I said, that's it, the honeymoon period's over now. Now you're...
That's right. That's right. Well, that is interesting. Yeah, you guys welcomed a new member and said goodbye to an old one. Jessie Huran Kunko had been here, 12 years. 12 years. And she's been replaced by Sonia Arrington, who won a pretty fragmented primary earlier this year. And so how do you think that council will change now that you've got a new member? You've seen this happen time and time again.
Yeah, you just never know. I mean, you just, I mean, you have ideas what the new what Sonia, she's made it clear what she stands for,
Absolutely.
So she's going to be involved in certain issues, and it'll be interesting how the other members react to her. You got a member. I always tell council members, just like being on a school board, you're one of many, so you got to convince people, but she now has the forum, which is important. She agreed to come on one day. I told her she's welcome,
That'd be great.
And, the public can get introduced there. But I think she's cognizant that she represents everybody now,
Sure.
She was elected by the city.
Right.
Maybe not in reality, you think that way, but you are, you represent everybody,
Oh, that's right. And even larger, I mean, it's a voice for the region. Tullio is well known for saying that he felt like he was the mayor of northwestern Pennsylvania, and anywhere the TV signals could penetrate, knew who he was. So
and I think that,
40 miles away.
That's something that I'm not blaming, the president, mayor, or anybody, but that's something that's been, to some of us, it looks like it's slipping because you now have the county, you want to be, bigger player in the scene.
Right.
Where in Lou's time, or Joyce, or any, it was, the city was the center,
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And the mayor acted. I mean, the mayors knew that. Like even in big cities, you watch the mayor's he's got the bully pulpit, as they say,
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a tremendous difference in leadership styles among every mayor we've ever had, and of course Tullio was a guy that was really out there, and our current mayor is not, and it doesn't really mean anything in terms of ability or results either way. They just do the same job different ways.
Each one's got a different approach.
That's right.
Lou is big on the let's be the all-American city and stuff like that, and it was important to him to keep Erie up there. I mean, Lou knew the numbers were declining too,
Right. Yeah, he did a good job of that. I can't remember. I'm going to see if I can remember the exact quote. I used it in my lecture at the Jefferson. When Tullio was inaugurated, January 2nd, 1966. So we just passed the 50th anniversary of his first inauguration. His speech, which was published in the paper, he mentioned that his one goal was to make Erie a metropolitan community of major national importance. Not just local, not just countywide, not just regional, not just Commonwealth, but national. And he went and tried to do that to the best of his ability. It served him well. After 15 years, he brought back $207 million in federal aid to Erie, and after 24, that figure was about $300 million.
If I think there was one problem that people, his quest for metropolitan government, while I agree with that to some degree, it takes two people at the table to not take advantage of a situation. I think a lot of people felt like when we, shipped water out, that was the end of the city. We had lost our bargaining chip.
Right.
Our downtown, disappeared. Not that it wouldn't have, but it certainly added to it. And I think a lot of people figure, the approach with a lot of things like the airport and everything, which are necessary for the region. But sometimes I think the other governments, they look at us as just being in trouble. They don't want to help us,
Right. Well, it's a symbiotic relationship here. You have two different organisms that both, to a certain extent, feed off each other and need each other. And while they're both competing to become dominant, damaging one too much means the death of both organisms. So I agree with you on metropolitan government. I think it would solve a lot of Erie's ills. The outlying municipalities benefit a great deal from the money that Erie taxpayers send through the city, but yet they contribute nothing. And this was another.
Who's that? Do you mean
the other municipalities?
Well, here's a prime example. The newspaper was quick to point out in their article about the EMTA situation, and they're talking about Lehigh Valley. Well, they shouldn't have done that, because I'm familiar with the Lehigh Valley in Northampton, and they do a lot of things together.
Right.
They do things that are like with the casino. Even though they didn't have to, they made a joint, if we win, you get this much. We got nothing from the county.
Right.
We're sitting there with not a dime from the gambling. So, that's, in Lou's time, that wouldn't have happened.
I tend to agree with you there.
Probably Lou would have been down there with Harrisburg and strangling the local guys to say, either change the legislation or let's cut a deal,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not going to get anything out of this city,
That was how he got things done.
Yeah, and that's why I think, I'm all for Metro, but Metro's got to be a two-way street. You got to come up here and not disrespect me,
Right.
But, if we're going into this, let's go into it fair.
Yeah, and it's a difficult situation because you're asking someone to sit down at the table and basically give up an awful lot and receive not a whole lot more than they're already receiving. Maybe the only thing that they would really receive is the idea that the region as a whole would be better off, and so it's a bit of a sacrifice for some to make.
I don't think a lot of people like that. They always say that Americans never like to. The Chinese, they look. They look. 200 years ahead.
Sure.
We're always looking 2 days ahead.
That's exactly right.
Nobody looks at what could happen in this region. We got to number one. We got to know we're the smallest metropolitan area in Pennsylvania, probably. One of them. So how do you, why fight each other?
Well, that's an issue there. The population of Erie has just dipped under 100,000 according to the census. I know that we're going to challenge that figure and get up there. Changes what sort of aid you're eligible for.
And the county's not even growing really.
No, but the point of that is that you have a municipality like Mill Creek where 50,000 people live. That they make this 600 voters thing with the 100,000 census look silly. If that was configured as part of the funding formula in Washington and Harrisburg, we'd be getting tons more money, but instead we both lose out because we're both relatively small municipalities.
Yeah, I always like to joke about, there's Erie and Mill Creek, there's your big city that grew, 150,000.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's just shifted the population from one part of the county to the other. And
if you had Harbor Creek in there on the east side, there's a city that grew. But on the converse, the county hasn't grown. They've been...
Right.
That's a little bit of alarm too,
Indeed, it's. I think that's where the true population loss is happening. Is that people are leaving the city for the county, and then maybe leaving the county for good. Because you see a lot of since the 1960s, people have left the city, but they haven't left the area. They've moved to Fairview and to Mill Creek, and
but their families declined a little bit.
The
kids have moved away, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. When people get older too, you think you don't need a huge house with 4 bedrooms anymore, and so you look for a place out off Wolf Road or something like that, and you're in a different economic jurisdiction altogether. So it's just the way the population drives, and Erie is such, demographically, Erie is older, whiter, and more female than the entire Commonwealth. So we tend to skew that way, and so we have more seniors probably than most parts of the Commonwealth, and that drives population dynamics, absolutely.
You're always interesting, I know that.
I've got a lot to say, I just don't know how many people want to actually hear it.
Well, I always tell people that. Sometimes they don't like to hear it, but...
Well, here's one.
I like pouring over that data. Go ahead, caller.
Hey. Happy New Year to you.
How you doing?
Good. Hey, I got a question. It's interesting you're talking about some of the possibilities of how Erie County could expand if they'd be willing to try. What has ever become of the old Hammer Mill property? Has anything gone in there?
Well, I think it's owned. I got to plead guilty. I believe it's owned by the this development corporation, the land. I'm trying to think of the exact title.
The Erie Development Corporation?
Could be that, EDIC or some. And I think the one piece that's over the bluff is still owned by the casino. At least the last time I heard it was. There was like a powerhouse down there. I believe that was owned by the casino. But the rest of the land, there's plans to develop it, and they have done a little bit. I think they put the biotech plant on there, that fuel plant.
Okay.
Yeah, but anything like the old casino project is probably out now. They've kind of, I think they've thought about it being more of an industrial park now.
Okay, I was hoping maybe you could consider it I know the mall is doing pretty well, and you're seeing a lot of these smaller areas around the mall also developing. But why can't we try to bring in a mall-type complex down there?
Actually,
the buildings are large enough, we could do a multi-level unit rather than just one flat level, you know what I mean?
Actually, a place where they talked about it one time was off of McClelland. The land,
in that park?
the land behind, the land that's, it's not a park or anything, because the city owns that Project 70 land. You can never put nothing in there.
Okay.
That was the only thing we ever had that might have gone. That's where like the Fabrizi dog park is and everything.
Okay.
That might have been like the McDonald Corporation. The Ray Kroc's wife was going to put in some athletic facilities. That never happened. But if you go back behind the bowling alley, that land that goes into Wesleyville a little bit, or that land there, at one time, I know the one owner of that, and he has toyed with the idea of putting in like a plaza or something. But you got issues with the road to stay how the state wants that cut into.
Okay, so you got state issues.
Yeah, so I mean, how when you put a big project in like that, I've always felt, and I don't want to encourage, development in Harbor Creek, because that's not my job. But I've always found it hard to believe that we didn't have some kind of a mini mall or large-scale shopping center between Erie and Harbor Creek, on the east side.
Right, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, and that land is like perfect for it, If you look at the old Candy Prep land and all that, and I don't know who owns that. That might be Penn State now. They're starting to buy up some of those woods. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that, the east side's always been, I know people don't like to hear it, but, we got to go to the west side to do the big shopping.
Well, that's just it. I've taken something down there at first because I thought this height of the buildings, you could make them into multi-level. How they renovate buildings into
it would
storefront area. That
it would have been a good idea. I don't know how relevant it will be now with how they're developing it, but
plus the biotech fuel place there, that makes it a little riskier.
I think it's pretty close to it. I'm trying to remember exactly. I got to get somebody to take me down and show me all the every piece of Hammer owned quite a bit of land down there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'd be interesting if we could come up with something. I don't know what that long-range planning committee had come up with ideas for the city to grow on.
Well, you can go to those meetings. Well, you got to be careful. There's one for the county. The Civic Center Authority has one of their own. mainly, focusing on the GAF property in that area and the things they own. So then you got the county has one, they call that Destination Erie?
Develop Erie.
Develop Erie, and then the city has their own comprehensive plan. And what they got to do, they're going to all have to work together, because if they don't, you have a mishmash of ideas. But, the one that the city had, I would advise anybody that lives in the city to actually listen to it. It could be scary, but the guy is pretty forthright in his opinions.
Is it online?
It might be. I'll see if I can find you the link to it. It should be, if it's on anywhere, it should be on our website, but I'll see if I can get it and report it next week to you.
Okay, I just, I'm sitting here thinking about what you're talking about and wondering, what happened, what could we do at the Hammerville property if it hasn't been developed already? And I haven't heard anything other than you mentioned the biofuel. I do remember hearing somebody say about the biofuel being down in that area.
Yeah, they're looking at that for kind of stuff like that. It's I think the grandiose plans of the casino just didn't, when that failed,
That chemical plant still located near the that McBride Viaduct area?
Which one?
Isn't there a chemical development place there? Chemistry industry there near the McBride Viaduct?
I know there's scrap yards and...
It was off as you start going up over the bridge there. It was to the left of the bridge.
I'm not positive on that, but I know there's a few scrap yards, and I think the old Kaiser plant was there too, but...
Yeah, but this one, I don't know if you remember when we went to Gannon, Dr. Becker worked at that chemical plant.
Might still be there, maybe not. There's a lot of empty buildings there now.
Yeah, that's just it. There's a lot of empty buildings, and I don't know, they're not bringing industry back, that's for sure.
No, I mean, I rode down Parade Street, they walled another building, but don't know what it's going to end up. Maybe a parking lot, but who knows?
Well, I noticed that too there.
Yeah, I want to see building, I want to see, new businesses, but,
Well, hey, anyway, I want to wish you and DJ there Happy New Year.
Oh, DJ's not here today. I got Corey Valancourt here today.
Pardon?
I got Corey here today.
Okay, I can't see,
I know, he's visually impaired a little bit, but he's...
That's why I look like DJ.
Okay. Don't ask a blind guy to tell how you look.
No, you're okay.
No, it makes, it's fun sometimes when you think about it like that. How does a blind guy know who you are? But I appreciate the wonderful joy that you guys bring in talking about things, and I hope that we have a much more successful year this year. Maybe some new things can come out of this, some ideas floating around here.
Well, it's like being an addict. You got to admit that you're in trouble, and you got to start from that premise and say, you know what, we got a lot of hard work ahead of us, and maybe we have to change how we do things. Quit waiting for the magic bullet to fall in on us, but go out there and chase it down. Actually go out there and start trying to talk to people, find out what the reasons are they won't come here. If you say, I know you don't want to come here, but why?
I'm sure a lot of it's the taxation that Pennsylvania has on.
Yeah, but you know what? The same stores open up in Mill Creek, right?
Yeah.
So you got to ask yourself, why years ago, why did we get, the new grocery stores and the new McDonald's and the restaurants are all brand new back then, the new LB's, the new Pizza Huts and the steak places, right? What happened? Why did that all change? Why did they move up the hill? You gotta, I know a lot of it's demographic driven, but so you gotta do like Buffalo and those towns did and say, how do we get you here? What would it take for you to actually put a movie theater in the city of Erie, or what would it take for you to even consider us?
Well, I know that GAF site there, and I'm not sure what they're going to put up there, but I've often thought, why don't they do like they did down in Pittsburgh at Homestead, that waterfront?
Oh yeah, that's actually, Doc, you're going to be surprised. We had all members of various governments got kind of an advanced look at it, and they will be releasing that to the public. And I think you'll be proud of that. The plan was a compromise between what I think a lot of people didn't want, which was a lot of private housing, and was a compromise between what David wanted, David Brennan, which was this grandiose commercial project with canals and everything, I mean, he was thinking out of the box, which wasn't bad. So the new plan actually incorporates, they tackle the parking problem, there will be some housing in there, but it'll be blended in with commercial and retail. Now, they can promise you this, but it still takes somebody to go out there and say, who can we bring here? Can we bring Joe's Crab Shack? Can we get any local merchants to go there? There's a plan for down there for a market house concept. Like in some towns they're open a couple days a week, sometimes they're open 7. But the plans are beautiful, and they got a plan there for some what I call the Central Park thing, where they can hook up they possibly could put ice skating in there, and it's going to be like a little city down there, but it's not going to be maybe as congested as David Brennan wanted. But I think the people would be, if they did this, where you could go down there and get something to eat or just shop, I think people would be happy, and I think the mayor's going to be happy, council will be happy.
What's the public access situation with that property on a year-round basis? People going to be able to go out and stand right up against the water and things
if
like
Eddie
that?
Kissel has his way, they will. Because even now, I mean, you can, basically they lock off the convention center at night.
Right.
But they have access there, during the daytime hours for fishing.
Okay.
And I'm sure that this is why Mr. Kissel fights all the time. We'll have him on here too about that. And council put a piece in there about we wanted some access on the north side of the hotel, the new one they're building.
Right.
We want public access. I think that's the feeling of council too. That.
Hey, good to see you back.
Yeah. Thanks for calling, Doc.
Take care.
But yeah, I think that's what everybody wants. And Eddie will keep us in.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's good because when I was in San Diego, they had the same concept, but you still could walk along the waterfront.
Right, which I think you should have.
In Chicago, you can,
Yeah, cities all across the Rust Belt have been reclaiming their lakefronts from industrial use, a century's worth of railroads and coal and ports and things, and I think it's...
Especially with their concept, you don't know how long the businesses will be open.
That's right. And then, that's another good point you touched on earlier, talking about places like Joe's Crab Shack and things, or bringing businesses into towns. I think you can look at social media every day or just talk to your neighbors, and everybody has this list of places they want, like, why can't we get a Trader Joe's, and why can't we get this, and why can't we get that? Who in city or municipal government has the responsibility or has the power, I guess, to go out to these corporations and to ask them those questions?
Well, that's our economic development people, But then you got like I talk about, if we got one thing wrong in this county, they're all out there firing a shotgun, like, you got Chamber of Commerce, you got, I'm trying to think all the names of them,
all these agencies.
Yeah, the county's got one, we got one.
Interest in this thing.
I wonder if they ever meet as a core group and say...
Yeah, again, as someone who's been involved in the news cycles around here, you always hear people asking and clamoring for these retail outlets, and other than just general din of the crowd, you never hear any, like the Chamber of Commerce. I've never once heard them say, we're courting Target, a distribution plant, or a Mitsubishi for a factory, or Volvo or something, or even something on the smaller scale of a Trader Joe's, or what's the fishing place we just got?
A Bass Pro Shop?
I don't know that they were courted or asked to come here. I know that they came here. I tend to believe that's of their own accord.
Well, there was supposedly a rumor that the one that wanted to come in was threatened by the one that was there. So they brought their sister in, which is, my son-in-law tells me they're both nice. But the other one would have been like a little different, but then the one tenant at the mall put pressure on because that's their sister company. But yeah, like, why can't we have I'm not laughing, I'm saying seriously, why can't we have a Bass Pro Shop along the lake?
Right, or a Trader Joe's or a Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. These kind of national retail chains.
They
do a fine amount of business here, but I think most people share the opinion that I have. It doesn't look like much is being done, or there's much coordination in those efforts. You never hear a politician in Erie come out and say, well, we've been engaging in very high-level talks with XYZ Corporation, and we're trying to get them to come here.
I always thought, when I'm on the road, if I sit next to somebody and I find out they're an agent or something, like I was asking one guy in Erie, I said, how come you don't have Joe's Crab Shack? And he goes, it's all demographics. He shows me the circle.
Sure.
He explained it to me. So I'm saying, okay, that's a negative. We don't have enough people. So how do we get to that company and change their mind? How do we say, look, we don't meet your demographics, but we think it'll work. How do we do that?
Or find a company whose demographics we can meet.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Go ahead, caller.
Kaz, about a month or so ago, Kathy Dahlkamper was on McCorchick's talk show, and she said, from the county's point of view, that they're going to become the hunter instead of the hunted. And she was talking about economic development, because I think now we're like sought after by different parts of the country to take what we have and move it elsewhere. She wants to become the hunter and get out there and look for things and try to bring them to Erie County.
That's what we should all be doing that,
That's a great attitude.
Yeah, but Kaz, I think there's 23 agencies that devoted to economic development.
Yeah, I knew I couldn't remember when I was telling Corey. I said they're like firing a shotgun out there.
Yes, and honestly, if you were interested in moving to Erie, number one, you wouldn't know where to go, and after you got bounced around to 23 different agencies and never got the correct answer to anything, you'd go elsewhere. You just would, and it's a shame, but we'll see. There's not much left of that GAF property, so whatever plan you saw that included that big parking ramp and whatever else they took away to accommodate that other hotel they're building, there's not much left.
Actually, though, did you see the plan?
Me? No.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's a compromise, and in the future, once you saw it, it made it. If they do it the way they're going to do it, 3- and 4-story buildings, they're going to maximize what's on there. And like with the parking ramp, they're building a component of retail around it. In hopes that they cover up the parking ramp. And and like Corey and I were talking about, it's all dependent upon whether can we get the people. Like somebody told me, they were thinking out of the box, and they said, in that market house they're going to build. And they envision a market house being out by the road more.
Right.
And they said, do you think we could get like Urbaniaks in there? And I said, actually, you want more than Urbaniaks in there. But, that was a plan Flippy had with the Kohler project. But if you got Urbaniaks to move in there, let's say, and you got, a few other merchants, if you've seen how the market houses work, you get the Amish people to come up here from Meadville a couple times a week, and
there's some great produce grown locally here, and a lot of great meat products. I think this area would benefit tremendously.
A great Romolo's store. There's all kinds of things that we're good at.
And I hope Casey Walls, because that's his project. I hope they do their work, and but we all need to be on. Like I agree with you, we need to be on the same thing about. Quit waiting for the magic parachute to fall into Erie. We better start.
When I heard her say that, I said, "All right, that's the approach we have to take." Kaz, and we're up against it a little bit. I'm not one that always looks back to what we used to have, but when I do look back at what we used to have, we had 140,000 people. We were pretty prosperous. And maybe young longing for yesterday isn't that bad, and getting people that have to get a little bit dirty when they work isn't a bad thing.
No, I mean,
somebody can't design
a
work in Silicon Valley atmosphere.
No, 2 weeks ago we had Eddie Brzezinski on here with Mark and them.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Kaz.
And Matt Punt, and I said, we all have to start. we're kind of like Sisyphus on the hill with that rock falling down.
Yeah.
At some place, we're going to have to dig our heels in.
Yeah.
And say, this is it. We go no further backwards. You know,
The biggest entrepreneurial failure that I ever saw was the Kansas cancer machine.
Yeah, I think everybody hoped we would have it here.
Guy who the brains behind it, and the will behind it, and we didn't push that and pursue it like we should have. And I'm glad maybe it's found another home somewhere where it can get developed, but it should have been developed here. We should have got behind that, and we didn't, Kaz. And that just speaks for the community. It speaks for the leadership. It speaks for the people you're with.
I think Joyce really tried hard.
I think she might have.
And I don't think we're completely out of it, but I mean, I was traveling in New Orleans once, and I was shocked.
Yeah.
They were talking on national radio about this program, and they couldn't say the guy's name right. It was Caneas or, you know, and I'm going, hey, they're talking about Erie on there. You know, this was in New Orleans. And I'm going, wow. I said, this is big, you know, and yeah, you know what? Sometimes we don't look in our backyard. Here's a prime example. I talked to Nick Scott, who's a lot of people, some people like him, some don't.
Okay.
But I said, you know, I was somewhere speaking, and I said, there's got to be a reason why Nick Scott does not develop in the city of Erie.
Yeah.
And I said, I think it maybe goes back to nobody ever asked him.
Yeah.
And after the meeting, he come up to me and he said, you're right. And I said, see, these are things that, you know, you look at the guys building in Summit, and they go, well, why don't you ask him why you don't build in Erie? You know.
You know, Cass, something happened to me. It's not off topic completely. I went to Field and Stream the other day to buy something, and they asked me if I had one of those cards, you know, a courtesy card for Field and Stream, and I said no. He says, do you have one for Dick's? I says, you know, I do. He says, well, what's your address? Punched it in, and he could pull me up at Field and Stream on my Dick's.
That's what I was telling Corey. The Dick's, I think Dick's put up a protest when they were. What was the other one that was coming in? Do you remember?
Not sure. Maybe it's at Cabela's.
That's what it was.
Yeah. But you know, and then in the Sunday paper, the Field and Stream ad is kind of commingled with the Dick's ad.
Yeah.
They're kind of in together. So I'm just wondering how much of an affiliate of Dick's Field and Stream is, or vice versa.
Well, I think the Times did a story that was part of the deal. That
was okay.
Yeah, they're like in the same umbrella corporation.
When they referenced to my Dick's card and could use it at Field and Stream.
Well, it's like Marshalls and TJ Maxx and all that.
Yeah, but I mean that's not a bad thing.
No, it isn't. But everybody wanted to see Cabela's.
Yeah, Cabela's would have probably been. Even though you go in that Field and Stream store, and I'm not the outdoors type too much, but they've got some beautiful specimens of animals in there. I mean they're dead, but beautiful, you know, stuffed animals from everything, fish, things that swim, fly, and crawl, and I mean it's amazing. It's worth the trip just to go see that, you know. And but listen, I'll let you go.
Hey, thanks a lot for calling.
Have a good week.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, that's it. You're right. You know, we got to start looking for people. You know, find out what the reason is. They don't want to come here. You know.
Well, this this also kind of goes back to that proposed rail terminal out in Harbor Creek. It was another great opportunity for the region to look forward to some growth, and that was ultimately shot down as well. It's a difficult blow to put in that much work to bring a project to Erie that would bring lots of jobs and maybe some satellite industries and things like that, and then just watch it all kind of go away.
And what was amazing was, and this is where I was kind of disappointed. I wasn't a councilman then, but I said, I think we'd love it in the city. You know, and they kind of said, well, it won't work. And I know Representative Harkins was big on it. We were going to try to figure out, you know, can we get them to come up to, okay, if Harbor Creek don't really want it, you know, and I can understand they're a bedroom community, you know.
Sure.
And that's where I always get into the issues about everything is not truly metro. You know, everybody's got their own issues sometimes. Yeah. But, you know, I think the city, we already got the area down on the east side, you know, up track a little bit.
Definitely.
They could Could there be some problems? Yes, but can we solve them? I mean,
And this goes back to what we were talking about between looking at 2 centuries versus 2 hours ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly the people of Harbor Creek for the next 2 hours would not make the traffic or, any of their perceived ills associated with the project. But 200 years down the line, when Erie is no longer a thing and Harbor Creek has no main economic engine driving the county, where's Harbor Creek going to be? This is that spirit of municipal cooperation that we don't seem to have here in Erie.
no, we had the same problem with the airport for a while when they
The
were.
airport, the casino as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to be problematic and
We
emblematic.
tend to be very parochial.
Absolutely. Very fiefdom-oriented, where nobody in some small little municipality wants to see the tiny little slice of power for the betterment of the entire region, and that's just what's got to change. If I agree with County Executive Dahlkemper on anything, it's that hunted versus hunter mentality.
Boy, I've always said that for years. I said, I used to joke with some of our past economic people, and I say, you spend more time on Niagara than Commodore Perry did, at these parties, but what have you brought here?
Right.
Show me some you brought outside of Walmart was a corporate decision, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But show me some that somebody really went out, and hounded them, and said, we want you here,
I can't name a single thing, can you?
Not really. I mean, my parish priest, I'll give him credit. He's not here any longer. He got transferred, but he would listen to us all the time, bagging off about, we wish we had someplace to eat on the east side. This is before the breakfast place come or any of those, And he went and found a buddy of his, a friend of his from school, college days, that was actually a real estate agent for Applebee's.
Cool.
And he actually got him to look at this piece of property that was in the city, and the guy said, I don't think I can sell it. But I give him credit for getting the guy to the table.
Absolutely. So
Now,
if any of you viewers out there happen to know any corporate real estate types, let them know Erie's a great place to do business, and there's plenty of vacant lots here for them.
And then tell somebody that, like one of your elected officials, to be there with them, so we can ask them, what would you make? I agree with you. It's not going to make it. So how can we make it happen?
How can we make this happen?
Because where'd that Applebee's go? Right over the border in Harbor Creek.
That's right.
Barely over the border.
Just far enough over the border.
Past Wesleyville and
Right.
And I said, thank you. 5 minutes he's given us.
5 minutes.
But yeah, it's little things like we're all ambassadors, and you hear, I'll give it to Nick Scott. He'll do that. He'll go out and he'll listen to the public and try to find something that's new and unique. That's what we got to. I think what we haven't done is put together some of the people that are movers and shakers and have them, it's going to help them. And I know people are going to say, yeah, it's going to help. So what? Let's get it done. Let's quit worrying about, in Erie we worry about who makes the money, but somebody's always going to make money, but we got to get some development here.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
We're a one movie theater town. If that doesn't stun anybody.
And back in the old days, there were 3 movie theaters in Little Italy alone.
Right.
So.
And I understand it's a different world today, but
Right.
most towns at least have 2, our size, but
Here's a quick question for you. Recently, City Council in Pittsburgh decriminalized marijuana to ease the burden on their law enforcement. What do you think of that idea in Erie? Don't mean to put you on the spot.
I thought that'll be controversial.
Absolutely, it will.
I had a discussion with somebody the other day about the relevance of it, whether it's, I said, we can debate about, medicinal use compared to recreational use, but we've never won the war on that.
Right.
It's huge,
And is it a burden on our police force? Would it free
I would-
officers to deal with other types of crimes? That's
not speaking for the chief, but just looking from my own personal thing. If you look at how much work they spend finding these meth labs, which are the big issue.
Right.
Do they really have time to be? Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Cass. I got thinking, we're going to work on the east side of Park this summer, right?
Yeah, they're working on it now, actually.
Okay, that's where they usually have their farmers market during the summer. Could they possibly, if they don't have anything that goes in where that under the clock restaurant used to be, could they move the farmers market there, and with that fenced in area on the side, they could have things outside here, like even hanging plants or something like that, that maybe you can encourage downtown, attraction.
I don't know who owns that property, though.
Maybe you can check it out to see if they can do that.
Somebody owns the property, but
nice for a layout of farmers market stuff, and then that'd be out of the weather. People go in there and shop and stuff.
I'll talk to David Rocco, because David's really good on that stuff. I'm sure he'll move that gentleman somewhere around the park.
Well, this would encourage just not him, but maybe others. Maybe even that guy that some of the hot dog sales people might even go inside there.
I'll talk to David. He'll fill me in on what they plan on doing. Like how much effect it'll have. But I'm sure they'll come up with a plan, because those you're talking about Ernie the hot dog man, and they're like they've always tried to work around their problems before. But I don't know who owns the Boston store. I really don't.
I don't know neither, but I mean, at least that would not, as far as I know, nobody has showed any interest in moving in there yet, so then it won't be idle, that, it'll be used.
I heard crazy things, but nothing positive yet.
Okay. All right, well, I just got to thinking about that, park development there, and I got, wait a minute, what's going to happen to the farmers market?
Yeah, I think
they used to have it up there by Griswold Plaza there, Griswold post office there. But whether they could hold it up there anymore or not, I don't know.
I don't know if a lot of people like that up there,
Yeah, it was awkward to get to. All right, well, just an idea came to my mind when I was sitting listening to you guys, and we got to look at the future. Maybe what we ought to do is look at the Fortune 500 list to see what companies would be probably interested in Erie, Out of that way.
Sometimes we got to look in our own backyard. We got some people here that are doing good.
We do, and I mean, even in any kind of small steel industry or something like that, because they seem to develop along waterfronts too. So hopefully we find somebody that can come in and start making the city, like you say, turn around and start growing again in the right direction. All right, take care.
Okay, thank you.
Great points.
Where did we end up on? We ended up on, what were we talking about there?
We were talking about the police and the meth labs.
Yeah,
the time they spend on them.
I think the country as a whole wants it to shift to decriminalizing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Treating it like, I know when you compare it to alcohol, they don't want to hear that, but
right.
But when you think of all the money we spend, and the war on drugs now has progressed way past.
The drugs have won the war on drugs, I think.
And we're into stuff now that's, unbelievable.
Right, and then, it's a significant public health hazard as well. I was poking around down at that factory on 16th that caught on fire recently, and security guards said that there were it was like a farmer's market for meth in there. There were several meth labs, and one of them ignited, and that's what caused that blaze.
You mean that factory?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, if we'd lost a municipal firefighter or police officer because of meth labs in vacant buildings, there would have been an outroar.
Well, you read about them rolling down the highway now, making it in vans. I'm going, when you get vacant housing like we do, that's
yeah, it's a great place to do it. It's a toxic process that requires privacy, and you can't just do it out in the open. So the more blight you have, the more trouble you attract.
I've had people on both ends of the spectrum tell me some are for it, some are against decriminalizing it. Mm-hmm. But I think, you're not saying by decriminalizing it, you're not saying it's legal. I don't think you're just saying
it's not a priority. I think some cities have called it deprioritization, and I know you can still receive a traffic ticket-like citation that doesn't require court or things of that nature, but a lot of cities have started to really question whether it makes sense to spend their resources enforcing that, and Pittsburgh will be a good test to see how things should shake down in the Commonwealth and in Erie, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, because, back when I was in college, that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then they started the progression.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't even keep up with it now. I mean, when I was on the school board, they had classes for parents. Mm-hmm. The state police would come in, or and the local police would come in with these kits, telling you, how to spot things, and
right.
I mean, it's a whole different world today.
It really is.
Yeah, we're still dealing with the war on pot, and then we're like on this end,
Yep, spending resources dealing with that and hoping that some factory will come drop into our town.
But it's amazing. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, again, new city council, new year, a lot of good ideas and projects floating around out there, a lot of problems you guys are trying to solve. I think everybody's looking forward to seeing what this mayor continues to do and how you guys work with him.
But yeah, we definitely got some issues long term that we're gonna have to dig our heels in and.
That's right.
And say, this is it. We go back no further. But
don't give up the ship. Isn't that what this town likes to say?
that was our start of it. When that flag went to Annapolis, that's okay. The Navy's taking care of it, but it was made here.
That's right. Yeah, that's great stuff. Don't give up the ship.
What an attitude, huh?
That's right. Although he did give up the ship. He was on the HMS Lawrence, which was about to become a floating splinter, and he gave up the ship. So we'll cut him some slack on that.
Well, he's a lucky man. But I always go back to my famous friend, Dick Winters, the guy from Band of Brothers.
Uh-huh.
He's got the best line. Hang tough.
Yep. That's it.
And with that, Corey, I thank you. And you're welcome anytime.
Always glad to be here, Cass. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
I'll turn it off. Ooh, excuse me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been watching the Taxpayers Hotline Show on Erie's own Government Access, Channel 9.